Hey, good morning. We're going to do some stuff about the 1873 Winchesters and a few ladies of the West. One of those ladies was my third great grandmother, Sarah Elizabeth Davidson. I've got an article where her obituary, 113 years old in Oklahoma. Thetford's black draught medicine was a kidney cleanse back then. I'm not too certain that she was actually 113, but she made the papers and everything at 110. Voted for the first time in the 1920s for James M. Cox. Excuse me. In her obituary and in articles in the paper, she talked about her husband that had passed 50 years prior, and what a great man he was. That's Harv Davidson, my third great grandfather. He's buried at the Putman Cemetery there, just outside between Llano and Fredericksburg. Something kind of rare. You don't hear about these days. She loved her husband and thought so much of him, despite being poor, I guess you'd say, in money terms. His son Cam was the one that got an 1873 Winchester. This book by Captain Dan W. Roberts, he was a lieutenant back then, and he was with them in the Deer Creek fight. So it was one of the worst Indian fights he'd ever been in. Rangers and Sovereignty. You can pick this up on Amazon. First chapter talks about it was the toughest fight he'd ever been in. And so Tom Bird and Joe Bird were brothers in that. James and Ingram, the other captain, Rufus Perry, they were called into action too. The Comanche had gotten guns out of Fort Sill, lever guns, Winchesters and Henrys, and were coming back making raids in the area. Tom and my great-great-grandfather Will had already been in the Valley Springs fight 2 or 3 years earlier, and that's where Harry Hardiman was killed. With that said, we'll go on to the next thing, because this episode's about those 1873 Winchesters and the ladies that had them. This book is Ella Elger Bird Dumont's autobiography, and it was nearly lost to time. She was Tom Bird's wife. Tom passed away in the Panhandle there, Bird Creek, between Bird Creek, the Masterson Ranch down in the Bison Camp, and between there and Paducah and Quanah. He's buried, laid to rest in Quanah, Texas. He died of a peritonitis attack of some sort, cramps they call it back then. But Ella goes into all that. This book was nearly lost. Tommy Boley is a resident he was a resident of Paducah. He ended up being an English professor at University of Texas, El Paso, I believe. He goes into it here. But he found this autobiography in a box in a garage, and he used it for part of his stuff that he did at the college. And a vast source of stuff. This book's kind of hard to read. She wouldn't let anybody publish this book with changes in it before Tommy got it, and that's how it ended up in a box. She had married a gentleman named Dumont, Texas is named after. They were in Arm & Hammer and Wrath, all those guys that did the pork business, hogs and swine. That was her next husband. And she was living in a teepee in a dugout with her and Tom's kids, and the cowboy boys come by and build gloves and things. And she used Tom Bird's 1873 Winchester out a life. So it's worth the read for that, to me. I mean, that's what I got out of it. A lot of my history and how they lived would have been lost to time had not been for this book. She, Tom, and John James Haynes and others. I actually saw the first cattle, domestic cattle, come into the Panhandle. They were living off antelope, bison, and wild plums. I'll put a picture of the marker there that's on the Masterson Ranch. Robert Masterson was kind enough to let me and my wife go down there, and his driveway is 10 miles long back to the ranch house. And the old ranch house has been rebuilt at the National Ranching Heritage Center. The old J.Y. stone cabin, and that was placed right there by Tom's and Ella's camp. We could call it camp, but that was actually their home. So anyway, Rangers in Sovereignty and Ella Elgar Bird Dumont, great reads. This book, if you like books that have a lot of flowery language and stuff like that in it, you're not going to find that. If you want facts and how someone lived and how determined a young lady, when she married Tom, she was 16, 17 years old, and they got in a wagon and went to Bird Creek and eked out a living in a teepee when they started. So, you know, it was an excellent read to me. Excuse me, we had a helicopter fly over. We got a lot of land speculators, linemen flying gas lines, water lines, a lot of development going on in the area. As I said in earlier episodes, like Grandpa said, you can't stop progress. Anyway, yeah, those. If you're interested in 1873s and how it really was, how those Rangers, Teamsters, Cowboys lived, those two books will give you a lot of insight to that. Rangers in Sovereignty, Captain Dan D.W. Roberts, his wife lived with him in a Ranger camp there at Menard 6 years, and those she talked so highly of those Rangers, of how they, when Dan would be off, Captain Dan would be off with the Rangers fighting bandits or renegades or whatever it was, how those gentlemen in that camp treated her with such care. It's a pretty amazing read. Again, you know, you see some of that today, but you know, people that didn't have much in economic sense, money, scratching out a living, serving others. It was a completely different time as far as the way people treated each other. And with that said, I got my old first time Bible out, and I want to read to you James chapter 2. My brethren, have not the faith of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Lord of glory, with respect of persons. For if there come unto you your assembly a man with a gold ring in godly apparel, and there come in also a poor man in vile raiment, and ye have respect to him that weareth the gay clothing, and say unto him, Sit thou here in a good place, and say to the poor, Stand thou there, or sit here under my footstool. Are you not then partial in yourselves, and are become judges of evil thoughts? It's a word I think comes in close to today. What Senator McConnell, they lock up in a speech, a man so hungry for power that in his final days, him and President Joe Biden both just walked off into the forest after giving a speech how he's going to continue his warmongering methods. I feel for the people of Ukraine, I really do. And you may not believe this or think it's right, but I pray for Putin, and I pray for Biden, I pray for McConnell, everyone in our nation, and leaders worldwide. These people, you know, we all can usher in God's authority and love, or we can usher in hate, sin, and death. And if you didn't, you know, all you had to do is watch this last election. One side was kill, mutilate, you know, you're right to do it, things of that nature. Man, I don't know. Yeah, do I think that President Trump's perfect? No, he's a man, just as I am. He has a lot more people, I guess you'd say, or whatever, backing him. But I'll say this about him: he don't mind losing some money. If you look at the people that came ahead, Captain Roberts, Ella, Tom Byrd, those people, they served, and a lot of times didn't expect nothing. You know, they had hope. They hoped they would get a reward, but they didn't expect it. They didn't think that it was due them just because. It was a matter of earning it versus a matter of taking it. So keep that in mind. I hope that those books and that will lead you something. Got the new camera system for the bike, so we'll be getting some good footage. We can't ride the trails just exactly as they did, but we can cover the roads that cross those trails. So stay in touch, and I'll keep posting. If you like, share, and subscribe, I'd sure appreciate it. It lets me know what you think, and it helps me to push these things forward. Hey, God bless you, and thanks. Take care.